Some people say you cannot fit a vertical chicken on a beer can inside the Kamado Joe Jr. And to those people, I say, you're wrong. Hey, I'm James from Smokin' Dad Barbecue, and if you're new to the channel, this is not the normal setup. We've just got some warranty work going on a table, and we'll be back in business in no time, but it's giving me an opportunity to cook on the Joe Jr. and just be reminded of the powerful versatility that this little guy packs for a family. And today, we're cooking a vertical beer can chicken along with some roast potatoes, all inside the Joe Jr., which will be more than enough for our family of four. To pull this off in the Joe Jr., we need to set up a little bit differently than what you might think. So the Joe Jr. you can cook direct, where you've got our cooking grid directly on the firebox, or indirect, which is normally what I would do for a spatchcock chicken or a roast chicken in order to get a higher temperature without any worry of overcooking the bottom. But the issue here in the Joe Jr. is when you add the deflector plate and that raised grid, there's just not enough space to stand our beer can chicken vertically. And so the fix I've found for this, there's two ways. You can buy an accessory where there's a cooking tray with a bit of a can holder in the middle. And I've had one of those for a while, but after breaking two of them in short order, it's not one that I recommend. Instead, I just find a 10¼ inch Lodge cast iron pan with no handles fits perfectly inside of our Joe Jr. And that will give us an opportunity to place a beer can chicken right in the middle and scatter any roast vegetables around the side that we want to cook. Today, we're going to be doing a spicy, using Malcolm Reed's hot rub for our chicken, and then some rosemary and thyme potatoes that are beginning collecting and cooking in the chicken fat as it renders out from our beer can bird on the Joe Jr. So to set up for today's cook, you may notice I've gone back to using the Kick-Ash basket. About a month or so ago, I received the basket from Kamado Joe Jr. and they are remarkably similar, and there's just a little bit of a difference in terms of where they sit in the fire basket. But I've actually been finding, maybe it's just my imagination, that I'm getting slightly better air draw with the slightly larger air gap that the Kick-Ash basket has. And so I've just, maybe out of my imagination or old habits, I've been using that lately inside the Joe Jr. in case you're astute enough to notice the slight difference in the two baskets. For today's fuel, I'm going to be going with something different than what you normally see on the channel. Normally I'm using either Big Block or Jealous Devil, and I'm going with Fogo for a few reasons. One, when I've done a taste test comparing some of my favorite charcoal brands, the family absolutely loved Fogo, and in chicken in particular, this is where it shines because it doesn't put off any of that stronger smoke smell that might really complement something like pulled pork or brisket. But with poultry, where it's easy to over smoke it and maybe get some rubbery skin if you're not getting clean burning smoke, I found it works great. And in the Joe Jr., where we're burning less fuel because it's incredibly efficient, I want to get the cleanest smoke possible. So that's today's fuel source in order to turn off an amazing tasting chicken. If you always use one brand of charcoal, I do recommend just mix it up. Find it's a little bit like your favorite sauce. You might have a sauce that you like for one meal. Doesn't mean it's the right sauce for every meal. And so the three that we use at our house all the time would be Fogo for things like pizza and chicken, because it just gives off that nice clean smell. And then you've already seen me on the channel use regularly Big Block and Jealous Devil for the stronger taste and higher BTU power if I'm doing something really hot and fast in the Big Joe. In order to prep our chicken, I just want to go ahead and dice up some potatoes and cut them in half so that'll reduce the cooking time. And then later on, we'll chop up some rosemary and thyme and add that into our cast iron pan along with some salt and pepper. So I'm going to start by just giving a rough chop in half to our little baby potatoes. So next, just going to trade places with the potatoes and our bird so we can season it. Now just make a little space in our pan here for the beer can to be in the center. Open it up and add our bird. All right, we've got our beer can chicken for the Joe Jr. all prepped, ready to go. So I'm just going to install a meter probe so we can track that. And I want to thank Meter. They've been following the channel for a while, and after using this product for over a year, they've offered you guys a save 10% code through my link. So I'm just going to pass that information on to you. So thanks, Meter, for your support over the last year, being a fan of the channel, and more importantly, helping you guys save a couple bucks. So once we get this in, the plan is just to move this on to the direct cooking grid. This setup will be great for our roast potatoes and beer can chicken, but using the heat deflector plate, as you'll see, there's not enough room to fit our bird vertically. So the game plan is just to move this towards the back corner so that the temperature probe coming down doesn't hit the front and give us some false readings on what temperature we're actually running at. I'll take you fast forward while we get this on the grill. Get some rosemary and some thyme for our potatoes. 2 sprigs will be plenty here. Just give it a rough chop. I'm sliding as I slice so that we don't lose any of the oils in our aromatics. Same thing, get a little bit of thyme. That will be plenty. I'll just grab some salt and pepper. I'm using some smoked Maldron salt and just some fresh cracked black pepper. All right, let's get some seasoning on our potatoes. A little bit of that salt all the way around. Some fresh cracked black pepper. Some of our rosemary. Doesn't really matter if some hit the coals. That will actually come up and give us some great aromas as we're cooking. So you can be a little bit aggressive there and not worry about it. Same thing with some thyme. I'm actually just going to take the leftover sprigs that I didn't use and just leave them here to provide some of those aromatics for our chicken as well. Let's put that back. So about an hour later, our beer can roast chicken in the Joe Jr. and potatoes look and smell amazing. I'll take you fast forward while I get on the cutting board so we can get ready for our taste test. So our potatoes felt great coming out of the pan. Let's just start to debone our chicken and get the legs off, the wings, and get some breast meat. We can do a bit of a sample. All right, that looks and smelled amazing as we're cutting it up. Let's get in for our taste test. I don't think I mentioned earlier, we were cooking just over 300 degrees Fahrenheit the entire time, and I was able to get a reading using the new Thermapen IR that I ordered. I saw this on a couple other channels and I wanted to start knowing what my temperatures are on my grill grates, my soapstone, and for other couple cooks. Don't really need it for today, but I was curious to see what our cast iron pan was running at as our heat deflector, and it looks like it was sitting around 400 degrees Fahrenheit as our heat shield and allowing our chicken to get fully rendered up top. So let's start with one of our potatoes. Looks good. Potatoes cooked in any kind of fat are a recipe to be awesome, and chicken fat is no exception. And so we kept things really simple, just some salt, pepper, some rosemary, thyme, and chicken fat, and we have some amazing roast potatoes. Let's see if they stand up to our chicken. Get my piece here. That is on the money. That is so flavorful. I've read a couple articles that say, beer can chicken doesn't do anything to make it more moist. There is less beer in that can than we started. I don't know if any of that is spillage as we were moving. I was trying to be very careful. But at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, like our cast iron pan is, our beer can is sitting right on there, and I saw it bubbling and steaming. And so, again, I don't know if there's a more scientific way to prove it, but in my mind, it works, and especially in the result. This chicken is amazing. So there you go. Anybody who is a doubter of a vertical beer can chicken in the Joe Jr., you can absolutely pull it off, and I hope you find this cast iron pan heat deflector method as useful for some other cooks that you could do in your Joe Jr. as well. I'm about ready to sign off, but before I let you go, make sure you check out my newly announced channel memberships down below. I'll be doing my first couple live events for members only all throughout the fall heading into the new year. And remember, if you're new to the channel, don't be afraid to fire it up. I'm James from Smoking Dad Barbecue, signing off.